This is what a stereo could look like. So I'm going to introduce Dr. Jeremy Rowe.
Thanks a lot, John. Wanted to share an example of a full stereo since we're going to be going with anaglyphs, just so people could see what the vintage views look like if you're not familiar with them. I look at stereo views as primary source documents that have embedded information in them that you can extract if you learn enough to do so. Provenance, process, background of the mounts, all that sort of information helps you figure out what's going on in the view. And sometimes you can find similar or related images in other formats that help you learn more about the stereo view and the time period that it captured. John asked me to share a couple of views from my collection with you, so I picked a few, hopefully with good stereo effects that converted to anaglyph. One's early auto racing, which you see here. We'll show an anaglyph in a minute. Others are of the Bowery and Lower Manhattan, and then a few rare early views of Arizona Territory. This one is a Speedway view. Here's the anaglyph of it. It's the view of the 1913 Indianapolis Speedway. It shows the grandstands, the track, the pits, and Louis Joux, who is the winner. He was the first Frenchman, the first European to win the Indianapolis 500 in 1913. Thought this is a pretty interesting view. I love early technology and early auto racing. This one's Bowery, and I live in New York City on the Bowery. This is a view by Ian H.T. Anthony, very important publishers of stereo views early, and this is one of the later views, taken of the tracks and infrastructure of the New York Elevated Railway, which is built above the Bowery in the 1880s. Those grids or girders across the middle were very popular for photographers to climb out on and to take stereo views because of the great stereo effect of this area. You can see the elevated railway on the left and the carriages and carts moving down below. Next view is of underneath the elevated railway on the Bowery. Again, a couple of street urchins. You see the vendors on the right. This one's one of my favorite stereo publishers from this period, the H.C. White Company. They did great views, wonderful quality printing and spectacular photography. This one dates from 1901. I'm going to switch over and show you some Arizona views now. These are focus of my collection has been territorial Arizona, early Arizona, 19th century, early 20th century Arizona. This is one of the earliest views taken in Arizona by H.H. Edgerton, taken in 1864 in December, as people were coming back at the end of the Civil War to try and open the mines in Arizona. You've got a couple of explorers in the front, including one mountain man wearing what looks like a dress with Pima and Papago warriors in the background. Some are armed with weapons, some have bows and arrows, some have rifles. This is an area called Aravaipa that was discovered by the Spanish and was used as a mine before everybody left during the Civil War when the soldiers were pulled back and the Native Americans took over a little bit. Across the bottom, you see a couple of tears. That's actually tears of the wet plate emulsion. And what happens if you don't have the emulsion all the way dry and you're packing quickly, you can tear the edge of the emulsion. Instead of cropping it out or instead of tossing the negative, they actually printed these since they were very rare and very difficult for them to do, printed back in California. These are some of the earliest photographs of Arizona that are made. We haven't found any photographs before this December 1864 images of Arizona. Next one is an image of the surveys, both the Wheeler and Powell surveys. Those were government surveys of the West, particularly of the Grand Canyon from the early 1870s, 70, 71, 2, 3, and 4. This one's a view that was reproduced in Leslie's magazine. You'd see Leslie's or Harper's would show images of Arizona to the West, images of the West to folks in the East. And this is one of those images that was also produced as a stereo view and sold. This shows some of the Apache Scouts along with the member of the expedition. This one's taken in 1873 at Apache Lake, which is in the mountains in Arizona, just near the near the Grand Canyon in northern Arizona. After the surveys, they had local photographers and photographers coming from California that saw the market and came over to Arizona to make images. This one is specifically made by George Rothric, who is a favorite photographer of mine. He photographed Casa Grande, which are the ruins in central Arizona that were found by Francisco Kino in 1694. If you take your thumb and hold it over the person in the top corner, look at the image and you have no idea whether it's 3 feet tall, 6 feet tall, 30 feet tall. As soon as you remove your finger, you can see the staffage, the person in the corner there, that gave scale. A lot of 19th century images of areas that people in the East had not seen, the pyramids, the Sphinx, the Native American dwellings in Arizona, all use staffage as a way to sort of give scope or scale to these, and they're very, very popular images. Another favorite photographer, slightly earlier, is Dudley P. Flanders. He was an entrepreneur who came from Los Angeles into Arizona and specifically was making such a collection of 125 images of Arizona to sell to help promote Arizona and make money for his photo studio. This is an Arastra, which is a device. You can see sort of water wheel in the upper left and then the round wheel that's flat. with an area down below. Arrasters were possible driven by water, and they were used to crush ore. If there wasn't water available, they would use mules or horses or even people to crush the ore and then use that as a way to concentrate the ore. The ore was so rich at this point, they would actually ship it for off to California instead of assaying it in Arizona. But this shows a hopefully pretty good 3D effect of one of the early arrasters in Prescott, where the gold was so rich that they were picking it up, literally picking up nuggets off the stream beds for a while, and then actually started to have to crush ore and send to California for processing. This was taken in spring of 1874. This is the factory he built next to the arraster. As people started having to do more in the way of building rockers and placers and digging shafts, Elliott did fabrication, he did tin work, he did work, he did a variety of things. And another view taken just the same time in spring 1874 by Dudley P. Flanders. Rothric, I mentioned earlier, he's another one of my favorite slightly later photographers. He traveled Arizona, had a studio first in Yuma, and then moved to Phoenix, and then traveled around the state making images, or actually territory at the time, making images. This one is one of my favorites, great 3D effect. He was a master at sort of posing people to get these great 3D images. You've got an Apache Scout on the foreground left, holding an Apache Renegade posed on the right, with the officers and their adjutants and their Native American assistants in front of the officers' quarters in Camp Verde in central Arizona. This was made slightly later, 1878, 79. Still trying to get the final date on that one. But Rothric was fairly prolific. He made several hundred images of early Arizona during this time. Last image that I have for you today is a studio scene. Very unusual for Arizona. There weren't a lot of studio stereo views made, a few, but not a lot. This is Rothric's brother, his father-in-law, and one of his assistants, reading left to right, that had just come back from a tour around Arizona making images. The last were made in Payson, Arizona by the Natural Bridge. This is a shot of them in the studio, and it's labeled A Melancholy Scene. So I hope you enjoyed seeing a few images from the collection that I've been able to share with you. If you'd like more information about historic photos or images, I've got a website, vintagephoto.com. You can pick up copies of my book, or you can ask John to include more segments like this in future sessions. I've got thousands more images to choose from if you'd like to see them. Hand it off back to you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jeremy. That was fantastic. Now we've been in Arizona. We're going to shift a few time zones and chat with Colin Metherell. He is the current president of the Stereoscopic Society, which was founded in 1893.
Yeah, this is the housing I use. It's got a little cover here with the two lenses. On the back, you can see this gubbins here, a selection of little pegs that allow me to use all the functions of the camera underwater, in principle anyway. It's actually quite a bit tricky at times because you can't really see the screen very well. But apart from that, it's just like using a camera in normal mode, only it's a bit more, as I might say, point and hope camera, because you're never really quite sure what you're taking the photograph of. Just press the button and hope. That's how I use it.
Fantastic. Thank you for that explanation.
Right, these images are Atlantic spotted dolphins, and I had a week's holiday cruising around the Bahamas, and hopefully we saw quite a lot of dolphins. These are the Atlantic spotted dolphins, and had a couple of trips where we'd get into the water and actually have close-up contact with them. But unfortunately, it was for very short times, just a minute or two. But I did get some nice images of the dolphins there. Okay. This is also dolphin watching, but this is a cheating way of doing it. This is in Papua New Guinea. There are two people hanging on the bottom of a net, suspended from that arm sticking out the side of the boat. And you hang on like for grim death and get dragged through the water at an amazing speed with the waves breaking over you with a snorkel there. It is quite amusing, but again, I've got some nice photos of the bottlenose dolphins you'll see in the next slide. There we go. Bottlenose dolphins are fairly spread virtually all over the world as far as I can see. The temperate world anyway, we get them in Britain. Yeah, they're quite friendly, but they do swim at a fantastic rate, and you have to swim very fast with fins to keep up with them. And if they're happy to be with you, that's fine. But then if there's too many of you, they will just take off and you'll never see them again. Okay. And the next couple of slides are from the Galapagos. This is the Galapagos fur seal, which is very badly named because it's not a fur seal. It's not a seal at all. It's a sea lion. They're very inquisitive, and they swim right up to you, swim around you, and go all over the place. What I was trying to film them and keep up with them, which was a complete nightmare, totally exhausting. But I did get one or two images for complete sea lions. Most of them were just the odd flipper or a tail fluke. Okay, and this is a green turtle. We found one little bay where there were quite a lot of green turtles. Most unusual. Normally turtles just swim away as soon as they see you. The water was quite dark here because the sand on the bottom was virtually black in places. So it gave a very dark and murky background to the images. But well, we're now in Scotland, and this is a lion's mane jellyfish, and you can just see the tendrils underneath, which are the stinging parts, and they do pack a pretty nasty sting. But I was okay. I was in a 8mm dry suit there, so there was no way they could get at me. But it was absolutely perishing cold in water in Scotland. It was pretty awful, actually. Anyway, yeah, if we go on to the next one. We're back in the Caribbean now. This is in Belize. I extended one holiday there to go to Belize, hoping to see the manatee. And the boatman said, 50-50 chance. So I thought it was worth a try, and got into the water, and within a couple of minutes, a manatee came along. And it's really brilliant. I was so pleased to see them. I got a few photos, but I had a bit of trouble with condensation in the housing, so some of them weren't too good. But it was a wonderful experience to see them. This Manta Ray, this was in the Komodo National Park in Indonesia. There are about 50 manta rays there, maybe even more, and they were swimming along in line of breath, one behind the other, and not the slightest bit bothered by our presence. One actually brushed just past my arm. The water was quite murky because they were feeding there, and they swim along with their mouths open because they're filter feeders, and they just gobbled out whatever's in the water. I cleaned up the image. I spent quite a bit of time cleaning up those images. We're now on the Baja Peninsula of Mexico. This is halfway down on the Pacific coast. And these are grey whales. And we were just sitting in a small boat waiting, and the whales would come up to the boat, and we could stroke them. And this is a mother introducing her calf to these strange people that go around in boats and don't get in the water. Unfortunately, it's not allowed. Otherwise, I would have been in the water with them. But yeah, they just came up for a stroke. It's as if now we're no longer killing them. They want to be our friends. It really was quite an extraordinary experience. Go on again, and this is the Silverbanks off Dominican Republic. It's actually 80 miles offshore into the Atlantic, and this is a humpback mother in the background with a 1 to 2 month old calf in the foreground. And a lot of the mothers there were quite happy for us to interact with them and the calves. Some of the interactions went on for an hour, and the mother would allow the calf to swim right up to us, swim below us, and pirouette in front of us, and do all sorts of things. It was just an incredible experience there. And now we're on to whale sharks. And these were in Mexico off the Caribbean coast of near Cancun. Whale sharks, well, they're 50 foot long. They're the biggest fish in the sea. And again, they're filter feeders. You can just about see the white teeth around the lip of the mouth. Their teeth have just evolved into such tiny things because they don't actually use them for biting things or anything. They're just as they're filter feeders. But they're most amazing gentle fish and not the slightest bit bothered by having a couple of snorkelers right in front of their mouths like that. Okay, and this is a suckerfish, and it's hitching a lift on the back of a whale shark, and you can see the gills of the suckerfish are open, and so are those on the whale shark. You can actually identify whale sharks by the pattern of the white spots on them, and there are databases around where people report them, and they can be identified, and their movements can be tracked all around the world. So it was really, that was a week's holiday. All we did was seeing whale sharks for an entire week. And one afternoon, someone had a drone and they sent it up to count the number of whale sharks. And there were 400 whale sharks around our boat. And according to all the books, these whale sharks are just...
Thank you so much for doing that. It's just so wonderful. I think I could speak for everyone. That was fantastic. We all really do appreciate it. Oh, look, there's... Oh, you know what? That... I have something. Oh, there we go. Now it's me.
Yeah.
Hey, listen. If you want to feel like, if you have your 3D glasses on right now, I'm going to give you a shot. You're going to feel just like Brian May. There you go. How'd that feel? You didn't even have to practice or go through all the grief that it takes to become a rock star. So you're welcome.